religious school, when I go visit the classrooms, the fifth graders or the sixth graders or the second graders, the most common question is, why doesn't God talk to us anymore? It seems like that is, I mean, there's a lot of other amazing questions. We could write books on the questions these kids ask. But most common, I think, is why did God talk to Sarah and Abraham and Moses and Miriam and doesn't talk to me? And I think the question is actually echoed in the words that we just sang with Moshe, Aharon, Shmuel. David, or whoever is the author of this psalm, seems to be saying, I don't get it. God talked to Moses. God talked to Aaron. God talked to Samuel. And how come God isn't talking to me? What am I doing wrong that God doesn't consider me a prophet, or God doesn't speak to anybody in that way anymore? Then we turn the page to page 21, and it seems to say, in my reading of it tonight, which will change next week, I'm sure, but tonight it's saying, maybe you have to find yourself in the right position. Maybe you're listening for the wrong thing. Maybe you're listening for Morgan Freeman's voice to be speaking to you in some deep, calling out to you in that way. Maybe you're looking for a burning bush. And what this psalm is saying is the people at Mount Sinai heard God because they were in a community. Because they found themselves in the middle of nowhere, not in a city, not distracted by phones and TVs. They didn't find themselves somewhere like that. They found themselves in the middle of nowhere. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe we're looking for God in all the wrong places. And how do you actually go about hearing God's voice? This isn't a question for you to answer now, but you can tell me afterwards. Where do you go to hear God? And for me, one of the places I go is here, to be in community, to be in a room and get to hear the voices singing together. Even the people who don't know the words, who can't read a letter of Hebrew, who don't know what's going on, just going in with a lie, lie, lie when you feel it, when you hear it. A lot of the words we sing are yababai and yalalai. So just coming in with those kinds of sounds. So that's one place I go. Another place is just out in the world, to be by myself somewhere, whether it's in nature or in my car on the 101, somewhere around Winnetka or Tampa, where everything just kind of stops. And just being there for a moment, not with a podcast and not with music, but just listening, and I kind of feel something. There are different places that we go, and I think that's what this psalm is getting at, is maybe it's at Mount Sinai, but maybe it's not, because the people who wrote the psalm weren't at Mount Sinai. They're only imagining. So as we sing these words, to try to imagine, where could you go to hear something deep and divine and true? And King David found it in the still small voice. He found it in music. Maybe that's where you'll find it too. Page 21.